Hello, everyone, and welcome back to From the Stands. It is the College Football Game Day Show. We've ridden through the first round of the playoffs so far. 12 teams, only 8 remaining, 4 had to bye, and we are now into the CFP quarterfinals. To go over these 4 games with me, yet again, we got Mr. Andy Hopper right on top of me, Mr. Tom Scavetta right down below me. Not going to recap the games because it has been enough time. I think everyone has seen the results, seen the highlights by now. But we are going to start with a quick segment here because obviously some of these blowouts that we've seen have started a bit of debate over whether we need to adjust what we're doing with the playoffs here and possibly reseed teams after the first round buys. So very quickly, I want to know you guys' thoughts on what you think about a second round reseeding based on committee rankings. I'll put on the board here what the matchups would be. We got number 1 Oregon versus number 8 Arizona State, number 2 Georgia versus number 7 Boise State, number 3 Texas versus number 6 Ohio State, and of course number 4 Penn State versus number 5 Notre Dame. Those would be the matchups if we were to reseed. It would certainly make the games a little more competitive, I feel like. But Andy, I want to know your thoughts here on reseeding, or if we should just keep it as is right now with the 12 teams and the 4 buys, keeping the top 4 spots.
Yeah, I think this makes sense. You look at these matchups, and I don't know. It's certainly like some of the paths for some of these teams, like Oregon having to play Arizona State, which no disrespect to ASU, but having to play them over, Ohio State certainly would be preferable for the Ducks, right? I
Yep.
think you should reward your higher seeds with the with games at this point against the lower seeded teams. So I have no problem with the reseeding. I saw that they are considering for next year eliminating the first round buys for the conference champion and just giving it to the top 4 teams, which I think would be interesting and I think makes sense. Like Tom, Notre Dame would have got a buy this year. They should have. But since they are independent, they got put in that 5th spot. But I think you look at these matchups, you'd have some great games here. So yeah, I have no problem with reseeding, and I think this whole year of the CFP is like a guinea pig, right? They have this format, they're testing it out, see how it works, and then I can only imagine we'll see little tweaks and improvements and stuff like that as the time goes along. But the reseeding certainly makes more sense to me than like I said, Oregon having to play Ohio State, Notre Dame having to go to Georgia, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Tom. I mean, your team is personally affected here, so you got a bit of stake in this one with your team at the number 5. Obviously, you know we've talked about this off air quite a bit about Notre Dame, whether they would want to join a conference or not. But if they were to do this type of reseeding, maybe conference realignment isn't really something that needs to be looked at as much and helps you guys out. So, what are your thoughts here on this reseeding?
Yeah, Notre Dame doesn't want to jump ship from independency. And I think not just from a Notre Dame perspective, but from an overall synopsis when looking this over, this seating makes more sense as far as the 8 teams that are left. Georgia, Boise State, Oregon, ASU, no disrespect to those 2 schools. Those are probably on paper the lowest seeded schools, remaining. And then you look at Texas and Ohio State, that makes sense. Penn State and Notre Dame, yeah, look, I'd be much more confident going in against Penn State than I'd be Georgia, regardless of the QB situation, right? Another thing to consider too, and I like what Andy said before about what the committee might be considering for next year, because that could possibly prevent Notre Dame from thinking about joining a conference at any point. I don't know what you guys thought of this. I thought at first this might be cool, but I'm having my doubts. A quadrant system, similar to what men's basketball has, right, for March Madness, or something similar to that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like quadrant 1, quadrant 2, just an example, and you get points based off of those victories. One last comment about this seeding, this reseeding thing we've been discussing. You would potentially get an Oregon, Penn State, and a Georgia, Texas for the 3rd time if all 4 of those teams win. So that would be really interesting. The rematches, you'd get one rematch, you'd get one double rematch. So yeah, overall, I'm for this. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, looking at the matchups, I mean, it almost feels. I know the biggest game people have been harping on is the Oregon versus Ohio State matchup because it almost feels like punishment for Oregon to be matched up against Ohio State. Nick Saban was on the Pat McAfee show earlier talking about it. I didn't entirely like his take on it because he was kind of saying, just put the 4 best teams, regardless, not even 4 best teams ranking wise, but like who the committee feels is the best 4 in the bye, and how Ohio State was also being punished. Ohio State's the 8th seed, so even if you get rid of the buys, I don't know how he has them lifting all the way up to number 4. But that's besides the point. I do think this would be a nice addition for the coming years. I don't know if they do it next year or if it takes another couple of years. But I think it would mitigate most of the complaints people have had so far about Arizona State and Boise State sitting out the first round, and then Oregon and Ohio State, who either one of those could look like a national championship contender matching up in this second round quarterfinal here. So yeah, I'm all for it as well. We'll see what they do with it. I know they're already talking about it, so how quickly they go through with the changes, what we will be watching. But obviously, we want to talk about the big games here, the actual quarterfinals that we have on the board. And we'll start off with our December 31st game. It is 7:30, number 3, Boise State taking on number 6, Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. Andy, what are your thoughts here on this one?
Yeah, so obviously we saw Penn State dominate their first round matchup, the 38-10 win over SMU. They forced Kevin Jennings into a ton of mistakes, with multiple pick sixes, forcing turnovers. Can their defense do that again this week against Ashton Jeanty and the Broncos? What we've seen from him all year is he's going to get his, guys. It doesn't matter if you're stacking the box. He's a workhorse. He's a dog. Look at his yards after contact. Like his yards after contact, he's like still top 5 in the nation in rushing. So he is an absolute cheat code. Is it going to be enough to beat, a really talented Penn State team? You look at a guy like Tyler Warren at tight end, who's done it all for them. You look at the two-headed monster of Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield, and Drew Aller. He played fine. I thought in the first round. There wasn't really anything he did that really jumped off the page at me, but his team won. And they've got a really good chance to win this game against Boise State. Boise State breaking out their classic Fiesta Bowl uniforms, guys. The orange pants, white jerseys, and blue helmets, what they have worn in the Fiesta Bowl the last 2 times they've played. God damn it. I love an underdog story. Give me the Broncos.
Let's go. Tom?
Oh, man. I think the biggest key for Penn State in round 1 was Drew Aller only had to throw the ball 22 times, and that's where he's at his best. I will say Aller has played a lot better over the last few weeks, and I think he deserves his flowers for that. I also give him credit for returning to school, unlike some other quarterbacks in Power 4 schools at the moment. But yeah, look, they got a 2-headed monster. Nick Singleton, not only is he really good on the ground with 8 rushing scores and almost 950 yards, he's got 5 touchdown receptions as well. So that definitely benefits Penn State. Katron Allen, Andy mentioned, and the big juggernaut for them on offense, the engine that makes this offense run is tight end Tyler Warren. In my opinion, he's been the best tight end in the nation this season. 92 catches and 6 scores, over 1,000 yards. He is a really, really good receiver. He's a good blocker. He can catch play-action bootlegs. He can run seams, curls, slants, you name it. He's going to be a beast in the NFL. And then I just don't know how Boise State's going to be able to keep up with guys like Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis Sutton on the other side of the ball. I mean, you look what they did to Kevin Jennings, a guy who we didn't view as a slouch quarterback. He threw 2 pick sixes in that game, 3 of them. Why did he throw them? Boise State lost the line of scrimmage game. They lost the battle of – I'm sorry, not Boise State. SMU lost the battle of the trenches. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Now, Maddox Matson has not seen this type of pressure to hurt him all season long. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. Why? They're not getting in to 2nd and long. They're not getting in to 3rd and long. Ashton Jeanty's got almost 2,500 yards and 29 scores, but most importantly, he's averaging 7.5 yards per carry. They're getting ahead of the sticks, and it's worked for them very well. However, I hate to bring this up, Andy. You're fighting Illini. Saw it once earlier this season. They lost the line of scrimmage, and unfortunately, I think Penn State will control the line of scrimmage in this game. Meat and potatoes and meat, however you'd like to call it, style football. Penn State wins, and James Franklin leads his Nittany Lions to a semifinal appearance. However, they failed to cover.
Ooh. Yeah, listen, Penn State, they come into this game, they forced 3 turnovers, 2 pick sixes, 3 sacks against SMU, all while holding the Mustangs to season lows in both points and total yards, which I don't think anyone was really expecting, especially their run game has been solid. SMU's, I'm talking about Kevin Jennings, has looked competent. He's looked I mean, he looked way too nervous in this game overall. They stopped the run. Penn State 58 yards allowed on the ground. That was only an average of 1.6 yards per carry. You cannot win a game if you're only averaging 1.6 yards per carry. They stopped the pass, only 195 yards there for Jennings. Forced those 2 interceptions, as we talked about, 2 of which were pick sixes, of course. And at no point did Kevin Jennings look like he was comfortable, which is what they're going to need to do again in this game with Maddox. Obviously, a part of that was due to, like I said, how nervous Jennings looked out there. He just couldn't get anything done. On that second pick six, he was scrambling through against his body into triple coverage. I was on vacation during this game, but watching the highlights back, that one just kind of flabbergasted me. But Penn State, they looked very prepared. I'm not going to say it's all because Jennings kind of threw the game there with his nerves. Penn State did look very prepared. Part of what I mentioned on the last round show, I think, applies here. And that's the difference between playing on campus in the cold versus playing indoors. Because, like Andy said, Aller had an all right game, 13 for 22, 127 yards. Yeah, they didn't really need him to throw a lot, but he wasn't really doing much of anything. This will be indoors. It's not going to fly in an environment like this because they have a QB on the other side in Maddox Madsen. It's actually a pretty good compliment to Ashton Jeanty's ground game. He had 2,700 yards this season, and as Tom, I think, mentioned, there are just 3 interceptions thrown all season. So the O-line has done really well to protect him, just 1 sack per game on average. If I'm Penn State, I'm expecting a constant double team on Abdul Carter, and then I'm planning to absolutely just bring the house on those type of nerve-wracking, important downs there for Boise State. Get guys like Dennis Sutton, like Tom said, Kobe King, Zane Durant, looking for those holes to just absolutely obliterate Maddox, shake him up like they did Jennings, and force a lot of mistakes. I'm going Penn State here. They're top 10 nationally in most defensive categories. Fourth against the run, which is the big one here, obviously against Ashton Jeanty, who's going to be taking the bulk of the rushes here for Boise State. But yeah, the Nittany Lions have held 9 opponents to under 100 yards rushing. Don't know if they do it here because Jeanty's going for that Barry Sanders record and needs 132, so maybe they'll try to push him over the edge. But I think in terms of results, I'm giving the game here to the Nittany Lions. Moving on to January 1st, your 1 p.m. game. We have number 4, Arizona State, taking on number 5, Texas. This is the Peach Bowl here. Andy, over to you here. Who do you think takes this game?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting game, right? You have Texas's vaunted defense. You can make the argument that Texas has the most talent on defense in the country. Going up against, Sam Leavitt for Arizona State at quarterback, who's been really good, 24 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions this year. And you also have Cam Scatterbo. Cam Scatterbo is a guy at running back that I think's been overlooked this year with just how good he's been because all of the attention, which rightfully so, has been on Jeanty because he has been, just as good, if not better. So, definitely better. But Scatterbo is still a dog himself. I think if he can get going, Arizona State has a chance in this game. Some interesting comments from the media, availability this week. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Sam Leavitt was asked a question about Ewers, and he made a comment to the ilk of, I'm going to go out there and prove why I'm the better quarterback in this matchup. Ewers was asked about it, and he said, you know what? I did see that. He's a great player. I'm looking forward to going up against him. So Ewers went the classy route, which good for him. But I was just curious. I wanted to see how their stats compared this year. So quickly, I'll go through it. Leavitt 2,663 yards, 24 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. That's good for 63% of his passes. And a quarterback rating of 159.5. If you look at what Ewers has done this year, 2,867 yards, 26 scores to 10 interceptions, completing 66.5% of his passes, and for a quarterback rating of 148. Now, you can go back, you can look at their schedules, you can look at the opponents. I'm going to, everybody's going to say, well, Texas plays in the SEC. The SEC is better than the Big 12. I mean, if you look at Leavitt, he beat number 16 Iowa State in the championship game. He didn't only beat him, he beat the shit out of him. He beat number 14 BYU, who just fucking dog walked Colorado in the Alamo Bowl. They went on the road. He beat number 16 Kansas State. This guy has played in big games this year. Obviously nothing to the level that the Peach Bowl is going to be, but he's not going to run from this competition. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think Texas wins this game, but I think Arizona State's going to keep it closer than people think. They try to pound the rock. They try to let Scatterbo get hot and keep him in this one.
All right, Tom, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting game because, Texas, they beat Clemson last week by 2 scores. Cade Klubnik gave them everything they could handle, boys, and they answered the bell. Andy talked about that defense. Let's talk about them a little bit. The Clemson transfer, Andrew Mukaba, with 4 picks on the season, getting revenge against his old team. Jahdae Barron with 5. So those 2 DBs are problems for Sam Leavitt. Again, he is only a freshman athletically wise. He's technically a redshirt freshman, academic sophomore, however you want to call it, but he's young is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. This is his first year as a full-time starter. Quinn Ewers was in this position last year, and Texas already has a win under their belt in this so-called tournament, which is why they're favored by 13.5 points, as they should be. Respect is earned, guys. Respect is earned, and Arizona State has to earn it. I will say that. However, the Sun Devils have only lost one start with Levitt as the starting quarterback. So that is something everyone should consider here in this one as I dive into this game a little bit. I love Scadaboo. I really, really do. He's got almost 1,600 yards on the season, 19 scores, and Jordan Tyson is a guy who can make a lot of plays, 10 touchdown catches, over 1,000 yards. He is the alpha dog. I want to see more complementary pieces step up. And that's good for ASU. It's not like they're a one-dimensional team. You have to be multi-dimensional against pass rushers like Anthony Hill Jr., Colin Simmons, who has 8 sacks. Both those guys are eventually going pro. And yeah, you could compare apples to oranges, right? SEC, Big 12, but their wins, Utah, K-State, Iowa State, BYU, they're tested. That's why they got to buy, guys. All in all, I don't know if this pass rush and this run defense will be able to keep up with Texas. I look at Wisner, I look at Blue, both had 100 yards against the Tigers. They were a problem. They were a massive problem for the Clemson front seven.
Yeah.
For ASU, this is their strength, the back line. They have caused 22 turnovers this season as a defensive unit. But Texas is a different animal. How are they going to get pressure on Quinn Ewers? I don't know. That's how you beat Quinn Ewers in Texas. You knock him down early. I don't think they'll be able to do that. This is another situation where I think Texas does win outright, but they fail to cover.
Yeah, obviously the player to watch here for Arizona State, because they will need a lot of production to keep up with this Texas team, is Cam Scadabo. Super strong, super powerful running back. He creates really good separation with his stiff arms. That was probably the one thing that stood out to me the most. The guy definitely doesn't skip the arm days when Arizona State hits the gym session. Downhill, he's super explosive. Scoring defense, total defense. This Texas team is on the top in almost every category. They're 11th in rushing yards allowed per game at 104, second in points allowed per game at 13.3. I am a little concerned. We are hyping up their defense. I'm a little concerned about the secondary and what they allowed in that first round matchup. Klubnik, probably a better overall QB than Sun Devils QB Sam Levitt, but I think Levitt does make better decisions. He makes more level-headed passes. He had a 4-game stretch where he did throw an interception in each of those games, but aside from that little stretch there, he has been mostly avoiding errors. Scadabo, he's got enough in the tank to tire this Texas defense out, in my opinion, and I think that will really open up things for Levitt there. He makes smart passes. I think the offense is going to be rolling, and they're going to put points on the board here. My one concern here is the protection. Texas loves to bring the heat. They've amassed 41 sacks this season. You guys were just talking about them, including 3 against Clemson in round 1. Arizona State's O-line, though, does seem to step up in big games, so that's what I'm going to be watching for. They've allowed only 1 sack versus a Utah D-line that's always super stout. 0 sacks against BYU. That D-line, we just saw them destroy Colorado and Shedeur Sanders, and only 1 sack given up to Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game. So, yeah, Texas is going to be a lot to deal with, but I am going to go with the shock pick here and say that Arizona State pulls the... I mean, I don't know if it's an upset because Arizona State had the bye, but yeah, I'm taking the Sun Devils here. Moving on, 5 p.m., we have number 1 Oregon against number 8 Ohio State. This is the Rose Bowl, and this is probably the most talked about matchup here because it does feel like it could be a semifinal or a final game here, and we're getting it in the quarterfinals. Andy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this one is the best matchup of this round. Obviously, we had these teams face off in the regular season. Ohio State going to Oregon, dropping, I wanted to say their only game of the year, but no, they lost to Michigan. But dropping that tough one, Dan Lanning just absolutely out-coaching Ryan Day at the end there with that 200 IQ play to get to run that time off the clock. Ohio State certainly has to be feeling a lot more confident, a lot better about themselves after last week and just absolutely doing whatever they wanted against Tennessee. Like, it just wasn't close. I expect this game to be, I saw an interview today with Will Howard, and he was quoted as saying, I really don't feel like anybody beat us this year. We beat ourselves. And if you go back to look at that Oregon game, I think he mentioned they had a couple turnovers and, just didn't execute down the stretch. Jeremiah Smith, he put out a warning to the Ducks secondary. He said, I dare you to play man. We're going to take some shots.
Ooh.
So I expect Ohio State to throw the ball down the field early and often because that is what they do well. That's why I think that makes their whole game plan against Michigan like that much more mind-boggling. Like, don't get me wrong, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are incredible running backs. Like, you're not going to find a team with 2 strong running backs like that just on any given day in college football. So they can hurt you in multiple ways, but the real strength is Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and that whole receiving core that they have put together. What do the Ducks do well? Just about everything. They don't beat themselves. Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the game right now. You have Dylan Gabriel, a guy that's a 6th-year quarterback. He has just as much experience as anybody in college football. And what does he do well? He takes care of the ball and he puts them in position to win. You have Jordan James, who is a hell of a running back, who they're going to let they're going to want him to get loose, look for Dylan Gabriel to look for Tez Johnson out there and try to get him involved early. Man, I don't know. I'm in on the Ducks. Give me Oregon in this game.
There we go. Quack, quack. Tom, what are your thoughts on this one?
I have a lot. When I look at this game, I hope Oregon wins real good. Look, they destroyed Tennessee. Ohio State did, but 21 of those points came in the first quarter. Will Howard had a solid game. He did throw that one interception. They got Henderson involved early. He had 2 scores. Jeremiah Smith was a weapon all game long. And what did their defense do well that they did not do against Michigan? Get to the quarterback. They sacked Ayamaliava 4 times in this game. JT, Tuamaloau, and Jack Sawyer need to get to Dylan Gabriel if they're going to win this game. Judkins and Henderson have combined for 18 total scores this season. That's their identity on offense early on, but they do have potential to hit you over the top as well with some passing lanes with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. Those 2 have combined for 21 touchdowns between the 2, Smith having 12 of those. Defensively, yeah, Dylan Gabriel is tough because when you're pressuring him, right, his blind side is the right tackle. It's not the left tackle. So that is where Jack Sawyer comes into play. So he's my player to watch defensively for the Buckeyes because JT's coming from the front side, which would normally be the blind side. But in this case, it's the opposite. Oregon's offensive line, Josh Connerly needs to keep his feet straight against Jack Sawyer. That's going to be a matchup to watch in the trenches. I just love what Oregon has done this year, Dan Lanning's team on the ground. Not just Jordan James. He's the easy one to talk about, 1,200 yards, 15 scores. But the change of pace back, Noah Whittington, has helped them put a lot of games away. Nobody watches what he does late, in garbage time, right? He's getting first down runs. When they're on the brink and James is tired in the second half, he's getting those first down runs, those big chunk plays. I really like what I see there. Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, and Terrence Ferguson, tight end Terrence Ferguson, are all valiant weapons at Gabriel's disposal. Defensively for Oregon, how do you stop Will Howard? Well, you put pressure on him and you force him to get uncomfortable. How do you get him uncomfortable? Well, Matayo Uiagalelei, he gets his name pronounced right, 10.5 sacks on the season. Can he get to Will Howard? Josh Simmons will have his hands full. Jordan Birch as well. Those 2 need to get to Will Howard. And the matchup of this game for me is Jeremiah Smith against Jabbar Muhammad for Oregon. Those 2 are going for a textbook classic showdown. I cannot wait to see who comes out on top of that. And I think whoever wins that matchup will be determined by the pressure that Oregon applies on Will Howard. And ultimately, I trust Dan Lanning a lot more than I trust Ryan Day. Oregon wins. And guys, plus money? Are you kidding me? Quack, quack.
Why am I not surprised by that pick and that shade at Ryan Day there? But yeah, listen, I will say I haven't trusted Will Howard all season, but I will admit on record that he did have an impressive performance in that round 1 game against Tennessee there. He also did have a pretty good performance when Ohio State took on Oregon in the regular season and lost by just 1 point there, as Andy discussed that game earlier, where Howard did put up a 28 for 35 performance, 326 yards, and 2 TDs. That being said, there's not much else on his resume that really impresses me. Something he does a lot is underthrow the ball, and not really in a good way. I know sometimes wide receivers can, turn that into a catch the ball or draw a pass interference call type of situation, but his underthrows are really putting the balls in dangerous spots where if someone's cheating over the long ball route or even just in the general area, he's giving them a good chance to pick that ball. And I think Oregon's secondary is good enough to take advantage of that if he throws some of those underthrown deep balls like he has in many games this season. Smith and Egbuka, yeah, they do have the talent to work back for that ball, but you really shouldn't be forcing your wide receivers to do that there, especially against a really good defense, really good secondary in an important game like this. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, they went for 2 touchdowns apiece in the round 1 game. They've been quiet the last few weeks, so they only put up 1 combined rushing touchdown in the 2 previous games against Michigan and Indiana. So to see them get on the board, maybe they'll get things churning again for that Ohio State running game. I talked about Texas's defense being the 2nd best in the nation in points allowed per game. They are surpassed only by this Buckeyes defense here, who have allowed a measly 11.4 points per game. Dylan Gabriel and the Oregon offense are going to have a lot of work to do here. Luckily, they are no joke on offense themselves, allowing just 17.8 points per game. That is good for 12th in the nation. So both teams here on defense, super, super good all season long. Oregon, they have been flawless in the win column all season long, though, something the Buckeyes cannot say. People have been hesitant to say that they're the favorite to win this game, though. As Tom said, you can get points here if you take number one Oregon on the spread. So, yeah, you can look at their schedule and maybe question the competitiveness of it. But for me, I'm not super worried about it. They had a pretty favorable schedule by Big Ten standards, but they beat playoff team Boise State. They beat Ohio State, the team they're about to play again in the regular season. They beat a good Illinois team. They stomped Michigan on the road. That's the only other team that managed to beat Ohio State this year. And then they beat another CFP team, Penn State, in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. So the pedigree is certainly there for this Oregon team. My one concern here is in a typical Oregon team, we see a lot of speed, lots and lots of speed actually, and with that has come running backs that have been able to catch the ball out of the backfield and really open up the field, open up the playbook. I'm slightly concerned that they seemingly either don't have that ability or Dan Lanning doesn't hasn't attempted to focus on it. Maybe he doesn't trust James here. James had just 24 catches out of the backfield for a measly 202 yards and 0 touchdowns. As far as the run game goes, his hands are strong and true, those 0 fumbles all season long. You guys know how much I hate turnovers and love protecting the ball. I'm sure that'll jinx him and guarantee him a fumble in this game, but I am going to guarantee a Oregon Ducks win here. So the fumble will mean nothing if it does happen. Next up, we've got an 8:45 game. It is number 2 Georgia taking on Tom's Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Tom, got to start with you. This is your team here. Big, big game. No Carson Beck for Georgia. And you did tell us you are starting to trust Riley Leonard more. So let us know your thoughts here on this matchup for you guys.
Welcome to the Sugar Bowl. We made it. It's been a marvelous journey, captured by defeat and learning to win. It's been a long season, boys, and I'm very, very proud of this team. There's no Carson Beck. Gunnar Stockton is the next man up. He played the entire second half of the SEC championship. Notre Dame has never beaten Georgia, but every game they've played all time has been one possession. I am up for this challenge. All right, let's get into keys of the game. All right, Nate Frazier and Trevor Etienne need to get going early for them dogs. I was around a lot of them this past weekend. They're cocky. They're confident. The more north up in Florida you go, boys, the more southern it gets, which means you get some more dog fans out there, okay? They've been good this year. Etienne with 9 scores on the ground despite missing the first game. Frazier with 8. Those two have been phenomenal. And this is, guys, we have to, all three of us have to pinpoint this. Defensive tackle Riley Mills is out for the remainder of the CFP with a knee injury. So expect to see more of Gabe Rubio and Donovan Heinisch inside with Howard Cross playing some 0 tech, more than likely 1 tech. This is the problem. Guys like Jared Wilson and Tate Ratledge, who's been a Bulldog for 5 years, 4-year starter on that O-line, they're basically moving trucks. They don't lose at the line of scrimmage. They don't. How are we going to beat them without Riley Mills? This is how. You stop the run. You make them go outside. You disguise your blitzes if you're Al Golden. You stack the box and try to confuse them. Make the running back do a little misdirection. And you do that by bringing in disguise blitzes and getting the linemen off balanced in their stance. That's how you do it. You need to get some push. You need to get some finesse. They have edge rushers to do it. Drake Bowen has been a phenomenal blitzing linebacker this season. If you can get these linemen rattled early, you have a chance. Georgia has a lot of weapons. Arian Smith, he's had a lot of drop problems. He might be working at Target post-college football, but let me tell you something. He's made some big plays when it's mattered. Dominic Lovett, awesome wide receiver. A transfer they got a couple years ago. And then their tight ends, I think they'll benefit Gunnar Stockton, right? A young quarterback, what do? They usually favor their tight ends, right? Those are typically your safer options, including my tight end bias. But Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky are there at his disposal. Also, Cass Jones is a great threat out of the backfield. So, yeah, all in all, I think it's going to be a challenge defensively. Al Golden needs to find a way to get pressure on Gunnar Stockton without Riley Mills. Offensively for Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, I've gave him a lot of shit this year. He's overcome a lot of adversity, and congratulations to him. He now holds the Notre Dame record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a single season with 15, which is incredible. And this is where the problem for Notre Dame defensively is also the problem for Georgia defensively, right? How do you stop Notre Dame's run game? You got Jeremiah Love to worry about. Their backup running back, Shadarian Price, has nearly 700 yards and 7 touchdowns. Nobody talks about him. Riley Leonard has 15. Love has 16 and 1,000 yards. You do the math, that's 38 rushing touchdowns combined in 3 players. How do you stop that? You know, the Irish are 11th in the nation with over 220 rushing yards per game. It's going to be a challenge. I'm looking at Jalen Walker and Chaz Chambliss trying to set the eggs for them dogs, each with 6.5 sacks. Michael Williams going up against freshman offensive tackle Antoine Knapp. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there. I wouldn't expect too many deep throws in this game for Leonard going up against Dalen Everett and Malachi Starks. They're experienced corners. Mitchell Evans could be a matchup problem, though, across the middle of the field. I think if there's one weakness in that Bulldogs defense, it's over the middle of the field. One last point, and I'll make my prediction. Notre Dame's Achilles heel, which I forgot to mention this. Christian Gray. You guys saw the end of the Indiana game, right? What happened? They gave up 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes because Ben Morrison's been out all year. They have Leonard Moore, who's a solid CB2. He's now become the CB1, and Christian Gray has been a liability since the USC game and possibly even before that. I think Dominic Lovett is going to hit the over on his receiving yards in this game.
Add it to my card.
Yeah. This really pains me. First ever CFP in the 12-team format. I'm going to be a realist here and not be a homer.
Oh, no.
Georgia wins the game, but Notre Dame holds their heads high and gets back in the CFP next season.
Okay. Can't believe you had to do that to yourself. Unless it's a reverse psychology here, and you don't want to jinx your own team. Andy, over to you. Well covered there by Tom. So we're kind of in the doghouse already. I can feel it. But what are your thoughts here on this game?
Yeah, I don't know how I could add anything more to that. Tom had us covered there. I will say, while he was going off of that, the Lions executed a hook and ladder for a touchdown, which was perfect, which that would be why you saw my reaction there in my O face. But look, man, you have Riley Leonard going up against Gunnar Stockton. Gunnar Stockton, if you can look up his high school stats, they're insane. Like, this guy has all the talent in the world, but he has not really had a chance to display that at the college level yet. The Irish defense, they are really good. Tom, you brought up a good point. Riley Mills out. That really sucked when he got injured, because it kind of, as soon as that happened, it's kind of, you start holding your breath. Like, oh, fuck. Like, how long is he going to be out? What the Irish have going for them is their superior run game. Jeremiah Love is so tough to beat. Riley Leonard can hurt you with his legs too, like Tom mentioned earlier. Love it. You want to keep him contained as much as possible. Do they lean on Travis Etienne a little bit more than usual now that you have, Stockton under center and kind of easing him into this game as much as possible? But Tom, if you won't do it, I will. Give me the Irish. I think they win this game. I think they win it outright. I think they win by a touchdown.
I love it. So obviously no Beck here, the obvious concern for Georgia. And he did just talk up Gunnar Stockton, who they now have to rely on. But like he said, not much experience back there. He's thrown just 32 passes all season long, no touchdowns, one of those for an interception. Kirby has sort of kept not a short leash, but a well-maintained leash on Stockton so far, for the most part, likely to keep his nerves calm, get a few receptions under your belt, start get those drives moving so he doesn't get more nervous. But you can't do that in a full game performance, especially not when you're going up against one of the best teams in the nation. At some point, he's going to be forced to throw the ball here. That Notre Dame secondary has been super effective all season long, so that's going to be a battle straight from the get-go. These aren't quite Travis Hunter averages, but Leonard Moore, Christian Gray, I know you just threw some shade at him there, Tom, but both corners have 8 pass deflections each, 2 interceptions each, and then you have safety Xavier Moore, the 6', 203 pounder. He's been back there lurking, jumping routes very, very effectively. He's snagged 8 interceptions so far this season. He's had a heaping pile of interceptions in Notre Dame's biggest games, which is the thing that I've been looking at the most here. He had one versus Texas A&M. I know they lost their bowl game against USC in shocking fashion there, but still a very good team. He had one against Louisville. He had one against USC, and he had one in the first round victory over Indiana. So when the big games come up, he's just out there making big plays. So definitely keep an eye there on Xavier Watts. Georgia's running back room: Branson Robinson, Roderick Robertson. Obviously, they're not the 2 big boys on this Georgia backfield, but they are both expected to miss the Sugar Bowl in its entirety, so all eyes will be on Trevor Etienne to see if he can get through the full game unscathed, because the Dogs will need him. He obviously suffered that rib injury against Florida. re-injured it again in practice before the Ole Miss game, causing him to miss Georgia's last 3 regular season games. They will need him and need him for the full game. Nate Frazier, obviously, like you guys said, he's there as the backup option. But with Carson Beck already out, Gunnar Stockton is going to need his best guys out there helping this Georgia offense march down the field. If Etienne's not playing the full game, I don't know if Georgia can win this game. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. In terms of total offense, total yards allowed by opposing offense per game, Notre Dame sits there right at 6th in the nation, 295.3 yards per game. If they can stuff Stockton and force only short, dinky throws with a battered Georgia backfield here, they're going to be forced to carry most of the load. I think it'll be lights out for the Dogs. They are a very, very good team, but you can't lose key players and have this many key injuries. I know you talked about Mills, that injury, obviously very big there for Notre Dame. But I think losing Beck and having a battered Etienne is the bigger story here for the Dogs. I think Notre Dame is just as good as this Georgia team. I'll say it. So Tom, I know you went the other way here, and I respect the pick, but I fully expect with Andy here to see your Notre Dame Fighting Irish move on to the semifinals. That'll wrap up the games here for the quarterfinals. But one last thing we're going to do here, because we always do a parlay party. I'm going to have the boys put together a parlay for me. I just informed them before the show about this, so they've had the last 30 or 40 or so minutes to think about what they want to throw into this parlay. Because it is the 2024 season, I'll be putting $24 on each of your parlays there for you guys, and then I will do one myself, combining every pick you make. So this is a true ride or die situation. Ride with the boys here. So does anyone feel confident about their picks yet and want to start this off, Andy or Tom?
Oh, dude, you guys want to get fucking nuts? Let's get fucking nuts, all right?
Am I starting with Andy then? All right.
Yeah, you are, because you guys aren't going to believe what I've put together here.
My.
We're gonna call this the weekend of the running backs, boys. We have a lot of high-profile running backs in these 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
I have 4 of them selected each to score 2 touchdowns, my friends. You're going to love this, okay? We're going to start off with Ginty, 2+ touchdowns. That's plus 160. Cam Scatabo, 2+ touchdowns. That's plus 220. Jordan James, 2+ touchdowns. That's plus 250. And Jeremiah Love, 2+ touchdowns, plus 500. Plus 17,372. Brian's $24 would win $4,169.28.
Happy New Year.
I told you, let's get fucking nuts, boys.
I love it. I love it because we're only through half of this. I'm combining both of yours. So if Tom
you'll never have to work again.
If Tom even just has 2 picks here to combine into this parlay, I may be able to retire after this if it hits. Tom, hit me with your picks here for this this parlay.
Okay. Gosh, how do I follow that up? This is going to sound really, really bad. All right. Notre Dame +7. I like them to get within a score. Here come all the safe picks now. Penn State -6. I like that. I don't know if they covered that 11 like we were talking about before, or whatever the line was, but I do think 1 touchdown is doable for this team. I like the over in the Texas-Arizona State game. I'm going over 45.5 points. And then Oregon money line, straight up. Quack, quack. I think the Ducks at plus money, that's a no-brainer. We have to include that in the parlay. I'd love to throw Notre Dame money line in there too, but I feel like it would sound weird coming from me because I didn't pick my own team. Look, I'm totally bought into what Marcus Freeman is doing this year. I don't want to be that guy. Tom's the homer. He's saying this. Oh, man, it's really rough, man. I'm hopeful, though. I love the support you guys have for my football team. It means a lot. But yes, Brian, only 4 legs for me. Those are the 4. You got them all? You need me to repeat any?
I've got them written down. I don't know if Andy was able to.
I'll send you a screenshot of mine.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know if you had time to throw those all in the parlay, but I will at least list them all. So starting with Andy's plus 17,300 and something here. We have
72.
We have 2+ touchdowns for the following 4 running backs. Ashton Ginty, Cam Scatabo, Jordan James, and Jeremiah Love. And then Tom, for his, is going to throw Notre Dame +7, Penn State -6, Texas, Arizona State over 45.5, and Oregon money line. And for mine, we're just going to throw all those on the card. Certain to lose. If not, you will catch all 3 of us retired on an island somewhere. But that is going to wrap up our show here. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy these quarterfinal games because there's really, honestly, some good ones here. I know some people are not in favor of the way these buys have gone, but I think 4 good games here. And catch us back, obviously, for the next round this time next week. Be sure to check down in the description for Andy's shows, review and preview. Links will be down below, and as well, Mr. Tom Scavetta's shows also down below. Sorry, I think I got that reversed. Review and preview for Tom, brew party for Andy. Down in the description. Be sure to follow and like. Catch us next week for these semifinal games. This is the College Football Game Day Show.